I never imagined my secret past would lead me to take down 3 attackers. I still remember the way the wind howled at night, like a banshee wailing through the darkness. It cut right through my skin, sending shivers down my spine. I will never forget the day everything fell apart, the fragments of my world shattering like glass underfoot. There I was, a nobody in my sleepy little town, a place where everyone knew everyone. I kept my head down, working at the local diner, waiting for some kind of sign that life would change. But, in the strangest of twists, that very night would be the beginning of my transformation. The evenings were often quiet, the kids cycled off to the park, couples strolled hand in hand, laughter spilling into the air. But that night felt different. Something ominous lurked in the shadows. The hairs on my arms stood up like tiny soldiers, and my heart raced, thumping against my ribs like a wild animal trying to escape. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, they appeared. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, cloaked in black, their faces obscured. Fear gripped my throat. I took a shaky step back, the world narrowing until it was just me and them. The air soured, filled with a metallic smell of danger. My breath came short and sharp, a whisper of panic creeping into my thoughts. Why did this happen? Who were they? I tried to scream, but the sound melted in my throat, replaced by a piercing silence that felt thick enough to choke on. Every fiber in my body screamed to run, but I was frozen, rooted to the ground by the weight of something heavier than fear. Suddenly, a recollection surfaced. A flash from my childhood, my father's old stories about hiding away secrets in the dark, about the strength hidden within me. My hands trembled as my mind raced. I had practiced those moves in my quiet bedroom, imagining scenarios, but never had I thought they'd come to life. Panic surged as they approached, but clarity broke through the chaos. Without thinking, instinct took over. I felt my muscles tighten, the adrenaline pumping through my veins like fire. They lunged at me, and in that moment, I fought back with every ounce of my being. It was a dance of violence, fists flying, bodies colliding. As the chaos unfolded around me, I caught glimpses of fear on their masked faces. Shock crossed their features, and for the briefest second, I felt a rush of triumph. Yet doubt crept in. How could this be happening? Why me? But there was no time for questions now. Each punch and kick echoed in the alley, blending with the heartbeat of the night. Just as the last attacker fell to the ground, sirens sliced through the air, cutting the tension like a blade. I stood there, panting, watching them flee into the night. My heart raced, but now it wasn't from fear, it was from something else, something electric. And just like that, my entire world flipped upside down. What was I really capable of? Why had I been waiting? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The morning after the confrontation was a cacophony of emotions. Sunlight spilled into my room through the cracked window, illuminating the dust particles that floated serenely through the air, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. I lay there, staring up at the ceiling, replaying the events over and over like a broken record. Could I really have done that? It felt surreal, almost like a fever dream. Yet the bruises on my knuckles told a different story. I forced myself out of bed, each step a reminder of the adrenaline that had coursed through me the night before. As I splashed water on my face, my reflection stared back, a mixture of strength and vulnerability. Was this who I was meant to be, or just a fleeting illusion formed in the chaos of fear? The question echoed, demanding an answer I wasn't ready to admit. After dragging myself to the diner, I found the usual hum of the breakfast rush oddly comforting. The smell of bacon and brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the chatter of regulars, who always greeted me with friendly nods. But today, their familiar warmth felt like a distant memory, as my thoughts spiraled back to the alleyway darkness that had momentarily consumed me. "Hey! Earth to Annie!" Carla, my best friend, pulled me from my reverie. Her wide eyes were filled with concern as she leaned across the counter. "You good? You've been in and out all morning." I offered a weak smile, knowing it didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah, just tired, I guess." "Didn't sleep well." Carla narrowed her gaze, unconvinced. "You sure? Because you look like you've seen a ghost." Before I could respond, the door swung open, and the diner filled with the sound of laughter as a group of local teenagers burst in. They were loud and carefree, a stark reminder of how life continued to flow, unperturbed by my turbulence. One of them, Jake, caught my eye and waved. A thread of unexpected affection tugged at my ear that had always been the kind soul who noticed when others didn't. But as they approached, a sense of dread filled my chest. The laughter faded as Jake sat down nearby, and suddenly the shadows of the night draped over me once more, darkening my thoughts. I could almost hear the echo of the attack, the heavy silence that followed as I fought back against fear. "Hey, Annie! How's it going? We missed you at the game last night." He shouted across the table, clearly in the dark about what had transpired. "Just working, as usual," I replied, forcing casualness into my voice. A part of me wanted to share, to scream about the battle I had fought. Instead, I choked it down, feeling the weight of secrecy on my shoulders. Carla could see through me, though. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I saw something online about an incident last night, 3 attackers in the alley." "You didn't?" I could feel my heart race at her words. "I'm fine, really. Just a coincidence." She frowned but didn't push further, sensing my walls had risen. We spent the rest of the morning serving coffee and flipping burgers, the normalcy a thin veil over the storm brewing beneath. But I couldn't shake the thought of the attackers, or the strength I had tapped into. Did it mean something? Was I destined for a path I had never considered? As the lunch crowd dwindled, I took a moment to step outside for fresh air. The sun felt good against my skin, the world buzzing around me. Just a block away, a small park was full of children playing. A familiar face caught my eye, an elderly woman feeding pigeons, her gentle smile lighting up her weathered features. She had always been a fixture in the neighborhood, her kindness a reminder of the humanity that often seemed fleeting in our busy little town. I walked over, drawn to her warmth. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson," I greeted, a sense of calm washing over me in her presence. "Oh, Annie dear," she said, looking up with a twinkle in her eye. "Come here, love. Have you ever fed the birds? They love a little breadcrumb every now and then." I shared a moment with her, a softness bloomed in my chest. Maybe in the fragility of life, in the small acts of kindness, there lay a deeper strength. But then, just as quickly, reality crashed back. What if the attackers came back? What if they weren't done yet? Suddenly, the screeching of tires echoed from the street, pulling my attention away. A black SUV screeched to a halt nearby, and the door flung open. My heart sank as a familiar figure stepped out, the leader of the attackers, the one who had lunged at me with his eyes burning with malice. He scanned the area, his gaze locking with mine for the briefest of moments, a slow smirk creeping onto his face. My body froze, heart pounding, uncertainty flooding my mind. What did this mean? He mouthed a single word that sent an icy shiver down my spine. "Next." The world around me narrowed to the figure standing outside the SUV, a shadow cast over the blinding sunlight that had moments ago brought me warmth. My breath quickened as I gripped the edge of Mrs. Thompson's bench for support, the elderly woman's voice fading to a distant murmur. "Annie, what is it, dear?" she asked, concern lacing her tone, but I couldn't respond. That smirk, it sent a tremor of dread through me, igniting every fear I had tried to suppress. In that moment, the park, the children playing, the laughter around me seemed like a fragile illusion constructed on the brink of collapse. I had felt bravery surge through me in that alley, but standing here, faced with this reality, that bravery dissipated like mist. The man approached me slowly, deliberately, each step heavy with menace. His presence warped the air around us, suffocating my thoughts. Memories of the confrontation flooded back me, pulse pounding in my ears, fists clenched as I fought back against overwhelming fear. But could I find it in me to stand strong again? "Nice place you have here, Annie," he teased, his voice dripping with condescension. "But you should really consider moving. It gets dangerous for girls who fight back." I swallowed hard, locking my gaze on his, refusing to cower. But inside, a storm of emotions whirled violently. I was caught in his snares, a part of me wanting to retaliate, to unleash the anger that had simmered since that night. The other part, the more fearful part, wanted to flee to hide beneath the covers of my bed, hoping the nightmare would fade with the morning light. Before I could respond, a shout pierced the tension. "Hey! Leave her alone!" Jake had surged forward from the diner, positioned between us like a barrier against a cruel world. "You think this is funny?" The man's expression shifted for a fleeting moment, surprise flickering across his face. "What's this? The brave hero?" He chuckled darkly. "You'd be better off looking out for your girl because she's in over her head." I felt a rush of gratitude toward Jake, his willingness to step in providing a flicker of hope. But fear clouded my thoughts. Was he putting himself in danger? The last thing I needed was for someone else to suffer because of my choices. "Just walk away," I managed to croak out to Jake, desperation lacing my voice. "It's not your fight. Too late for that, Annie," Jake interrupted, his tone firm yet unsteady. "I'm not leaving you to face him alone." Before I could plead further, the man stepped back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Fine, fine. I'm leaving, but don't think this is over." He leaned closer, his voice a menacing whisper. "You've stirred something, and now there's no going back." Then he turned, striding back to his SUV with a casual disregard for the gravity of the moment. The engine roared to life, and within seconds, they were gone, leaving only the echo of my thundering heart and a fog of uncertainty in their wake. Jake didn't move. He remained where he stood, eyes searching mine, a mix of anger and worry etched on his features. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softening. What was that all about? The tears I had been holding and threatened to spill over. I wanted to be strong, but the weight of everything became unbearable all at once. "I thought it was over," I admitted, voice trembling. "I thought I could be okay." He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around my shoulders, grounding me against the chaos swirling in my mind. "Annie, we'll figure this out. Whatever it is, you don't have to go through it alone." For the first time since the encounter, something bright flickered within you. As it hope? The weight of loneliness lifted, however slightly. But just as I started to believe in the power of his words, a shrill sound pierced the air. My phone buzzed relentlessly from my pocket. I fished it out, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach as I glanced at the screen. A message flashed before me. My heart dropped when I saw the name. "Mom," the message read. "We need to talk. It's important. Come home." I turned pale, fingers trembling as the implication sank in. Home? The very place I thought I could escape from, where shadows of my past lingered like ghosts, was now beckoning me back into the heart of my turmoil. "Annie?" Jake's voice broke through my panic. "What is it?" I fought to swallow the lump in my throat, but couldn't hold back the tremor in my voice. "I have to go. My mom needs me. Do you want me to come with you?" he offered, concern etched on his brow, but part of me hesitated. I didn't want him to bear the weight of my past, the secrets that could tear our fragile connection apart. And oh, it'll be okay. I just need to figure this out, I lied, my heart aching at the thought of facing my past alone. As I started to walk away, his hand caught my wrist. Annie, please just promise me you'll talk to me. No more secrets. I nodded, though inside, I felt the fear clawing at my resolve. I promise, I said, but as I turned back for one last look, dread filled me. How could I face my mom when the shadows of yesterday were creeping ever closer? The last thing I saw was Jake's worried expression before I disappeared into the maze of the city streets, my mind a whirlwind of unanswered questions and the weight of looming secrets. The confrontation last night had awakened something inside me, but these echoes of the past, how would I confront them now? The familiar path back home twisted my insides, each step laden with the weight of dread. The once comforting facade of my neighborhood now felt suffocating, a prison of memories that I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward me, reaching out like ghosts of a time I couldn't shake. As I rounded the corner, the old oak tree loomed, its branches swaying gently in the breeze, a silent witness to the countless moments of my childhood. It marked the boundary of my innocence, and now stood as a stark reminder of everything I had fought to leave behind. How strange it was that something so ordinary could evoke such powerful emotions, stirring up a concoction of nostalgia and fear within me. I quickened my pace, but as I neared our house, I froze. The front door was ajar. Instinctively, I stepped back, heart racing. This wasn't normal. My mother never left the house unlocked. Whispered warnings echoed in my mind, and I reached for my phone, hesitating before dialing Jake. I needed him. His reassuring voice had calmed me even in the face of danger, but fear surged again. What would he think of the chaos that awaited me at home? Come on, Annie, I urged myself, forcing determination into my trembling limbs. I pushed the door open cautiously, ready to bolt if anything seemed out of place. Mom? I called softly, dread pooling in my stomach. Are you here? No answer greeted me, only an unsettling silence broken by the creaks of the old house. As I stepped inside, the air felt heavy, laden with tension. I slowly made my way through the hallway, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. The living room was untouched, adorned with photos of smiles, laughter, and family gatherings, a stark contrast to the anxious tightness in my chest. Where was she? Just then, from the kitchen, I heard a faint sound, a soft thud, followed by what sounded like a muffled sob. My heart sank as I rushed toward the sound. When I entered the kitchen, the sight before me was one I had never hoped to witness. My mother, crumpled on the floor, back against the cabinets, face buried in her arms. Mom! I shouted, rushing to her side. Kneeling before her, I gently placed a hand on her shoulder. What happened? Are you okay? She looked up, eyes red-rimmed, a mixture of exhaustion and heartache etched into her features. Annie, I didn't want you to see me like this, she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. I felt the weight of guilt come crashing down, a need to soothe her, to be the daughter I had wished I could be. Mom, whatever it is, I can help. You don't have to go through this alone, I said, my voice a shaky blend of determination and dread. I didn't know how to tell you, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Your father, he's in trouble again. For a brief moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. My father had been the source of so much pain, an absent figure, whose shadows still haunted us. What kind of trouble? I pressed, fear morphing into escalating panic. It's not just financial this time. He got involved with some dangerous people. They're threatening him, and now they're threatening us. How could he let this happen? Anger flared in my chest, but it faded as I remembered the hurt buried in my mother's eyes. What are we going to do? We, she echoed, and I could see her fighting against the tide of despair. "Annie, I don't want to draw you into this. I thought I could handle it on my own," but she broke off, breathing heavily, as if the admission of her limitations weighed far too much. "We're in this together. I won't let him drag us down again." I felt a resolve build within me, fueled by the past and the present intertwining. "What do we need to do?" Mom wiped her tears, leaning against the cabinet as if looking for strength. "There's a man, he might know how to help. But it's risky, and I can't allow you to get involved." An icy grip of fear settled in my stomach. "Risks? Is he dangerous?" She nodded, her expression grave. "He runs with the kind of people who don't like to be crossed." "Annie, and your father—" I cut her off, the memories of our past stifling my breath. "We can't run from fishes already brought it to our doorstep." My mother hesitated, the tension thick between us. There was a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. "I always wanted to protect you from all this. By keeping secrets?" I felt the weight of every unspoken word we had shared over the years. "How can we get out of this if we don't face it together?" Suddenly, a loud knock reverberated through the air, jarring us both from our conversation. We exchanged frantic glances, the weight of our fears amplifying the sound. My heart thundered as I rushed toward the door, a primal instinct urging me to shield my mother from what might come next. "Annie," she warned softly, but it was too late. I swung the door open. Standing there was not an unexpected visitor, but someone else, an ominous figure, cloaked in darkness, with an unsettling familiarity. It wasn't just any man. It was the very last person I ever wanted to see again, holding a smirk that twisted my stomach into knots. "Talk about family reunions," he drawled, his tone chilling. "I see the apple didn't fall far from the tree." I felt the world spin around me, gasping as realization hit like icy water. This was not just about my father anymore. The danger was looming, and it was claiming a much larger territory than I ever anticipated. Every secret, every choice, had led me to this moment, and the past was finally reclaiming its grip on my future. The chilling sensation of dread settled over me, enshrouding the room in a suffocating fog. My heart raced, and everything around me seemed to blur as I stared at him, a specter from my past who had returned with cruel intent flickering in his eyes. This was not the face I wanted to see, not ever. "Why are you here?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. He stepped into the doorway, casting an elongated shadow that stretched across our kitchen tile, enveloping my mother and me. "Oh, come now, Annie. We both know why I'm here." The smugness in his voice grated against my skin, making me feel exposed. "Your father got himself into a little mess, and I'm just here to help, sort of." I shifted involuntarily, placing myself between him and my mother. "You're not helping anyone. Just leave," I urged, my voice rising in defiance. He chuckled softly, like a predator delighting in cornering its prey. "But you misunderstand. I'm not here for the warm family reunion. I'm here to make sure things stay civil. You sticking your nose into family business would be a very bad idea." At that moment, I felt something flicker inside me, a fierce spark of anger blended with a protective instinct. This man had taken so much from us, twisted our lives into nightmares, and now he believed he could intimidate us into submission. I pushed back against his simmering threat, grounding myself in memories of the warmth we had forged despite the chaos. "My father's mistakes are not our burden to carry." The smirk faltered briefly, the shadows darkening in his eyes. "Oh, but they are. You see, Annie, you are entangled in this web whether you like it or not. And I'm here to remind you of that." Just then, an unexpected flash of kindness cut through the tension. The neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, a kindly old woman who had once baked us cookies every Sunday, was out watering her garden. Her gaze caught the commotion through our open door, and she paused, one hand gripping her watering can with a frown etched across her face. "Is everything all right over there?" she called, her voice loud enough to bridge the distance, yet gentle, like a shield of compassion. The man at the door straightened, his facade of menace slipping for a moment. "Mind your business, old woman," he snapped. "Don't you dare speak to her like that." I shouted back, clutching the doorframe as if that could somehow fortify us against his darkness. "We don't need your hostility, and we sure as hell don't need you here." The tension vibrated in the air, a taut string ready to snap. I could see my mother moving subtly behind me, her expression a mix of terror and determination, just like mine. Together, we felt an unspoken bond, the strength of blood, the weight of love, pushing us to fight back against the odds. "Listen to me," my mother spoke softly, her trembling voice encompassing both fear and resolve. "We want nothing to do with you. Your threats won't work anymore, and am not afraid." I turned to her, a mixture of shock and pride flooding through me. This was the woman who had always been my anchor, suddenly reclaiming her strength. Perhaps our shared fear was not the only thing that bonded us. Perhaps it was also the courage we had inherited from each other. For a brief moment, he seemed to assess our united front. "Be careful, ladies," he said, a cruel light flickering in his eyes as he took a step back. "You think you can play the brave game, but the stakes are higher than you realize. Just know we'll be watching." He turned on his heel, striding across the threshold with an unsettling calmness that set my nerves on edge. I knew that my father's choices were no longer just haunting whispers, they were real, and they had manifested into threats that loomed larger than before. As he disappeared down the path, the breath I had been holding released in a shaky sigh. My knees felt weak, and I leaned against the door frame, trembling. "What do we do now?" I murmured, fear creeping back. "And we find a way," my mother responded, her resolve trembling but unyielding. "Together." But the resolve in her voice was tinged with uncertainty, and as the weight of the reality settled around us once again, I could sense that deeper shadows were still to unfold. Just as I turned to pull the door closed, a sharp knock echoed through the silence again, jolting us from our moment of respite. My heart plummeted. "Not again," I whispered, looking at my mother. Her terrified eyes mirrored my own. This time, it felt wrong, like the whisper of danger drew closer, masking itself behind the simple frame of our door. "Annie," she urged, gripping my arm, "we can't open it. We just can't." But I recognized that sometimes, in the depths of our darkest moments, the hardest decisions awaited on the other side of that door. I took a deep breath, mind racing as I approached once more. I was done allowing fear to dictate our choices. With one hand bracing the door, I paused. What if it was more than just one person this time? What if we had awakened a force that was too powerful to confront? "What's it going to be, Annie?" I reminded myself. My fingers curled around the handle, heart pounding as I prepared for whatever lay ahead. The moment my hand touched the doorknob, a violent tremor surged through me. I hesitated, uncertainty clawing at my insides. The world around me seemed to mock my fear, each rustling leaf and distant car horn amplifying the dread building in my chest. My mother's grip on my arm tightened, her eyes wide and pleading, but I couldn't turn away. The knock sounded again, rhythmic and deliberate, a taunt in the soft evening light. It felt heavier than before, laden with the promise of chaos. "Annie, think about this," she whispered, her breath shaky yet firm. "We don't know who or what is out there." "It could be worse than him?" I interrupted, the desperation in my voice a reflection of the whirlwind of thoughts crashing in my mind. "We can't keep hiding, Mom." "Not anymore." I pulled down the handle and opened the door just a crack, my heart racing as I peered into the darkness. My breath hitched. But it wasn't the menacing figure of the past that awaited me. It was a trio of unfamiliar silhouettes looming at the edge of our porch, their faces obscured by the shadows cast from the fading light. A cold knot formed in my stomach. "What do you want?" I summoned every ounce of courage to utter the words that trembled on my lips. One figure stepped forward, and I recognized the familiar outline of arms crossed defiantly across a chest. "It's me, Annie," he said, his voice a low rumble that pulled me back to another time. "It's Caleb, Caleb." The name was a lifeline, floating to the surface like a buoy in stormy waters. My childhood friend, once a source of laughter and light, now a reminder of long-forgotten bonds. But as I looked into his dark eyes, I noticed something different. The tension in his jaw, the unusual sharpness in his gaze made it clear he wasn't here for a friendly reunion. "Caleb, what's going on?" I breathed, urgency replacing the bravado from moments before. In the background, I could sense my mother's trepidation growing, her body rigid with the threat of uncertainty. "It's serious, Annie. We don't have much time." He turned slightly, revealing the two figures standing silently behind him, two of his friends, their faces obscured in the gathering dusk, but their postures rigid with apprehension. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my heart pounding in rhythm with my emotions. "If you're in danger, you shouldn't have come. Neither should you," he shot back, frustration lacing his words. But there was a flicker of warmth when his eyes met mine, an unspoken reassurance that still connected us even after years apart. "Things are escalating. We heard about your father. Those threats you face that they're not over." Disbelief mixed with icy fear washed over me, choking any sense of calm I might have mustered. "What do you mean?" I glanced at my mother, who guarded herself behind me, concern etched into her face. She wouldn't understand the danger or the tangled web of my past. "We've seen them. They're coming for you," Caleb said, stepping closer, urgency and an unyielding protectiveness radiating from him. "That man, he's not working alone. We've been watching, but they're smart. You need to get out." "Get out?" I echoed, the weight of his words crashing down around us. "Where would we even go?" "What do you mean, they?" Before he could respond, one of his friends shifted slightly, breaking the tension in their stance. "Annie, listen," he said, his voice steady but heavy. "We can't stay on the defensive anymore. If they're coming after you, it'll be easier to attack when you're alone. We want to protect you." Fury erupted inside me, mixed with desperation. Protect me? By what? Running away? I had spent too long allowing fear to manipulate my life, and I refused to let it dictate my actions again. "I want run. Not from him or anyone else." Caleb opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "You don't know what this has done to my family. My mother and I, we can't let him hold that power over us. We need to face this." Silence stretched painfully. I could see the boys shifting uneasily, questioning my resolve, but somewhere beneath that moment of hesitation, there remained something in their eyes, a flicker of shared courage. "Annie," Caleb said softly, "you're braver than you realize. But please, think about your mom. We need a plan." "Can we come in?" I hesitated, allowing fear and hope to collide within me. But having known Caleb long enough to trust him, I finally swung the door open wide enough for them to enter. As they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted from one of overwhelming dread to tentative determination. My mother remained close behind me, suspicion still shimmering in her eyes. As Caleb turned to face us, the intensity of his expression sent a spark through me. "You both need to know what we're up against," he said, glancing over his shoulder, as if to reassure himself. "I've witnessed their power firsthand. They have their hooks deep in your father's past, and they won't stop until they extract every last secret. In that moment, the gravity of our situation washed over me like an icy wave. My father's decisions, his inextricable ties to this danger, had not only haunted me but had also jeopardized everything I held dear. Before I could respond, a shrill noise shattered our fragile sanctuary. My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter, a message glowing ominously on the screen. Tension snagged at my chest as I grabbed the device, the screen illuminating the room like a beacon of trouble. "Annie," I read aloud, my voice faltering as panic rose in my throat, We know more than you think. The truth will come out, be ready. And as each word hit my ears, the reality of what lay ahead became starkly clear. The fight was far from over, and the past me past was only just beginning to unravel. In that very moment, an unexpected chill swept through me, an ominous feeling deep in my gut. My past had returned, but worse than just the enemies I could see. The ghosts of my history were pulling strings deeper than I'd ever imagined. And right then, facing 3 attackers seemed like the least of my worries. The room fell into an unsettling silence as the message lingered in the air, each of us processing the implications in our own way. The dim light of the kitchen cast long shadows, distorting our features, as if the danger looming outside had invaded our very presence. Caleb's brows furrowed, and he stepped closer. "What does it say?" he urged, his voice low but intense, breaking the gravity of the moment. I swallowed hard, the words weighing on my tongue like lead. "It's a threat, something about the truth coming out." I could feel my mother's grip tighten on my arm, her tension a palpable reminder of the fear that permeated this house. "What truth?" Caleb pressed, but the vulnerability in his voice hinted at his own unease. I hadn't seen that flicker of worry in him since we were kids. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. The line between uncertainty and fear was starting to blur, and my pulse raced in response. "I can't." Before I could finish, a sudden crash sounded from the backyard, followed by the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. Instinctively, I jumped, my heart hammering against my ribs. "What was that?" I whispered, practically trembling with the tension that gripped us all. Caleb darted toward the window, his silhouette tense and wary. "I think we've been followed. They found us." My mother's face paled, and I could see the horror calculated in her eyes. "Annie," she breathed, taking a step backward as if moving away from an unseen threat. "We need to call the police. In no time," Caleb shouted, his tone urgent. "If they're already here," but I wasn't listening. A newfound resolve surged within me, merging with the fear that had kept me locked away for too long. "We can't wait for someone else to save us," I said, my jaw clenched as I looked between the boys and my mother. "We need to do something. Now." Taking a deep breath, I drew the courage from my heart. "We need to barricade the doors, secure the windows. Let's gather what we can find." Caleb nodded, already moving toward the unwieldy oak furniture in the living room. The adrenaline began to propel us as we raced against the encroaching danger, fear shifting to purpose. My mother hesitated, but, sensing the swirl of determination rising within me, she reluctantly joined the effort, her hands trembling as she pushed furniture against the door. Moments blurred together in frantic energy, making a makeshift barricade out of the coffee table, a dining chair wedged against the doorframe. My mind raced in unison with the chaos. Just as we fortified one side, Caleb whispered something to his friend, and with a quick nod, they plunged down the hallway to check the back door. A tight knot of anxiety coiled in my stomach. The seconds felt like hours, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning. I focused on steadying my breath, refusing to let panic spiral and consume me. Then, out of nowhere, a soft voice emerged from the darkness, rising above the tension. "Annie." It was a child's voice, the same voice I remembered from those summer afternoons, playing in my backyard. It was Tara, my old neighbor, who had spent countless evenings at our home. "Annie, are you there?" I blinked, trying to drown out the imposing fear. "Tara, what are you doing here?" I called, my heart quickening at the sight of her small figure standing at the edge of the porch. "There are people outside. They're looking for you," she said, her voice trembling. "I overheard them talking. They said you have something they want, that you can't hide from them anymore." All at once, a sense of dread cascaded over me. I turned to Caleb, who looked equally taken aback. We can't let her see Tara," I shouted, cutting him off. "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." You need to go. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, her eyes widened in terror, the moment stretching as a figure emerged from the shadows behind her. "Look who we found," a familiar voice sneered, sending a chill down my spine. It was Lucas, the boyfriend I thought I had escaped long ago, with a smirk spread across his face, flanked by a couple of his cronies. The very people I'd hoped to leave behind. "Lucas," I breathed, dread flooding my senses and twisting my stomach into tight knots. I thought I'd buried him in my past, and now the weight of my secret life hung heavy in the air between us. "You've made this so easy, Annie. Did you really think you could hide forever?" He stepped forward, the shadows dancing across his face, revealing a malicious glint in his eye. "We've come to collect what's ours." Panic surged, constricting around my chest. He was no longer just an echo of the past. He was the embodiment of every dark fear I had ever faced. As I processed the scene unfolding before me, reality struck. I was standing at the intersection of my old life, filled with deceit and hurt, and the new path I yearned for, fraught with challenges that felt insurmountable. But there was no choice left now. Soon enough, I would have to fight, this time not only for myself but for those I still loved. As Caleb and his friends dashed back into the room, readying for conflict, I knew that this confrontation wasn't just about surviving a night. It was about reclaiming the power I had lost along the way. And the question hanging above us loomed larger than ever: who would emerge victorious from this dance with danger? As the tension thickened, a heartbeat of uncertainty pulsed through the room. Lucas' face was a portrait of sinister confidence, illuminated by the flickering kitchen light, while my mind scrambled for a plan. The memories of our past collided violently with the present, every whispered secret, every hidden scar, and every moment I'd fought to distance myself from the ghost of Lucas. "Back away from Tara," I demanded, pushing my fear down beneath layers of defiance and desperation. "She doesn't have anything to do with this." My voice, despite the tremor, surged with the strength of my convictions. Lucas chuckled, an unsettling sound that ricocheted against the walls like a taunt. "Oh, but she does, Annie. You see, you've always been the one I could never quite let go. You think you've escaped, but it's time to face the truth. You should have known that the past never really dies." Behind me, Caleb's presence was solid. It steadied my resolve. "We're not scared of you, Lucas," he asserted, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "And we won't let you take Tara." "Admirable, really. But you have no idea who you're dealing with," Lucas replied, casting a sidelong glance to his cronies. Their eyes glimmered with a mix of amusement and aggression, the sick thrill of potential violence igniting behind them. In that moment, I felt a fleeting pang of regret for what Tara had stumbled into. She was just a chilled, sweet, innocent part of my past. Her wide eyes were glued to the unfolding chaos, and I could see the shadows of fear creeping into her small frame. "Tara, go inside. Lock yourself in," I shouted, urgency spilling from my lips, though terror clung to every word. Instead of retreating, she stood her ground. "No, I'm not leaving you. Listen to her, Annie," Lucas said, his voice smooth as silk but dripping with malice. "You can't save everyone. Just accept that some things are beyond your control." But as the darkness closed in, and the walls of my childhood home, once a sanctuary, felt more like a prison, a flicker of hope emerged from within me. "You don't know me," I shot back, my voice steadying. "You may have haunted my past, but you won't own my future." Caleb edged closer, his eyes darting between me and Lucas, and I could feel the electric charge of determination building between us. "We're not backing down," he said fiercely. "You should leave while you still can." The room was a cauldron of emotion. Fear wrestled with courage, panic intertwined with resolve. I glanced at my mother, her face a mixture of disbelief and fierce protectiveness. She stepped forward, laying a hand on my shoulder, an unwavering anchor amidst the storm. "Annie, whatever you need to do, we face it together. she whispered, her eyes softly pleading, and I felt the weight of her trust wrap around me like a shield. But before I could respond, Lucas threw his head back and laughed, a sound that felt like shards of glass through my heart. "Charming little family you've got here," he sneered. "But it doesn't matter. You're still outnumbered." The threat was palpable, and as I surveyed the room, I could see every hopeful escape route slipping away, replaced by the daunting reality that came crashing down. The barricades we had erected felt inadequately flimsy against the threat hovering at our door. Suddenly, the crisis escalated. One of Lucas' companions turned and flicked a glance toward the kitchen, where shadows glimmered ominously in the half-light. "What if we just take her?" he proposed, a menacing grin spreading across his face. "Don't you dare touch her!" Caleb shouted, stepping forward, fists clenched. The adrenaline pulsed through him as he prepared to confront whatever was coming at us. And then it happened. A frenzy of motion erupted, glass shattered again, this time from the back door. Caleb and I whipped our heads around just in time to see the figure of a man lunging through the opening, chaos spilling into chaos. "Get down!" I screamed, adrenaline flooding my senses as I lunged for Tara, pulling her into a protective embrace. The cacophony of shouts and scrambling feet filled the air, but through it, one thought remained clear in my mind: Mindy would do anything to protect her. The battle began in earnest, and as I watched the struggle unfold, fear collided with a feral instinct. I felt a rush of energy surge as I grabbed an empty kitchen chair, wielding it with a newfound ferocity. Terrified yet unyielding, I joined the fray, the chaos igniting a flame deep within me that I never knew existed. In the whirlwind of fists, flying bodies, and frantic shouts, surrounded by uncertainty and primal urge, I caught another glimpse of Lucas. His expression had twisted from confidence to something more frantic. As he fought off Caleb, something unexpected flickered behind his eyes: fear. And right then, amidst the tempest of action, everything changed. "Annie!" Tara's voice wove through the tumult, drawing my attention for a split second, as Lucas stumbled back. I turned just in time to see her small hand hover above something gleaming on the kitchen counter, a knife, glinting ominously in the dim light. Time froze as I realized what Tara was about to do, an innocent act overshadowed by the chaos around us. The weight of my past collided with the weight of my present, scrambling my thoughts. "Wait, no!" I screamed, thrusting myself toward her as a new wave of dread surged. But the decision came too late. As Tara's hand tightened around the handle, I felt the ground shift beneath me. A new danger had arisen from the shadows, and I was forced to confront the reality. The truths buried deep within us all had begun to unravel, leading to unexpected consequences. That moment would change everything. As I lunged forward, ready to grasp the knife from her hand, I heard the words I had never expected to hear echo from Lucas' lips. "Annie, if you touch that, your mother might pay the price." My breath caught, heart racing as I saw the determination in his eyes, and understood this wasn't just a physical fight. The stakes were higher than I could have fathomed. And just like that, the battle line had been drawn, not just against Lucas, but against everything I had ever run from. The chaos swirled around us, each scream and shout underscoring the stakes of this moment. The tension pulled taut like a coiled spring as I realized the shimmering knife in Tara's small hand could untie the delicate knot of our lives or sever it altogether. "Don't you dare," I hissed at Lucas, hoping my voice exuded strength, though inside panic was spreading like wildfire. Tara's innocence was rushing headlong into a turbulent sea of desperation, and I felt powerless to protect her from what lay ahead. But Lucas, calculating and cold, stepped closer, his sneer threading itself into the cacophony. "Oh, Annie, you truly underestimate me," he taunted, his menacing gaze switching back to Tara. "I wouldn't want anything to happen to your mother. She's been so helpful in keeping your little secrets." Time blurred as the words sank in like stones. The realization struck me like a punch to the gut. My mother had been drawn into this tangled web, the quiet sacrifices she'd made rising up in my mind. Shame laced with anger coursed through me, flaring unpredictably. Leave her out of this. Why? She should have known better than to protect a child like you, Lucas scoffed, eyeing me with eyes that mirrored the monsters of my nightmares. But no matter. Let's give her a proper farewell. No! I screamed, pushing through the roar of the chaos, my voice trembling yet resolute. Desperation surged within me, ignited by the thought of my mother's fate resting in the hands of the very man I thought I'd escaped. You think you can control me by threatening my family? You're wrong. The room spiraled into disarray as I lunged for Tara, willing to do anything to wrest the knife from her grip. Instead of surrendering it, she stood defiantly. "Annie, I'm helping you," she cried, her voice quivering with determination but colored by the confusion of a child thrust into darkness. "Help me by staying safe," I shouted back, the words spilling from me with a mix of panic and fervor. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the flutter of courage battling against fear, yet anchored by a fierce loyalty to me. "Annie!" Caleb shouted amidst the tumult, his voice cutting through the noise. The skirmish had erupted further, and he was now outnumbered, grappling with Lucas while his cronies loomed closer. I could feel the space around me throbbing with unresolved tension, fear coursing through everyone present, ricocheting off the walls, and forming a barrier against reason. In a fleeting moment of clarity, I realized the only way through this was to turn Lucas' own manipulations against him. "Tara, drop it," I commanded, forcing my voice to steady. "Remember the stories I told you? About bravery? It's time to be brave now. For your mother. For all of us." Tara's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but something shifted, an ember of bravery igniting. "Please," I urged, stepping forward but keeping the safe distance deliberate. "Our futures are more important than their threats. Can you trust me?" The flicker of hope landed in the space between us. Slowly, the tight grip of the knife began to loosen. At that moment, I felt the weight of countless memories surge around us, the warmth of laughter, the sweetness of stolen moments in the stillness of afternoon light. All of it hinged on this fragile decision. Just then, the situation exploded around us. One of Lucas's accomplices disarmed Caleb, sending him crashing to the floor, and I felt the air crackle with impending chaos. "Annie, we don't have time. We need to go," he shouted, urgency lacing his voice. With a final terrified glance at Tara, I lunged forward, the distance between us dwindling. "Please trust me," I shouted, feeling the enormity of this moment unfurl like a dark flower. And in one decisive movement, Tara dropped the knife, the clatter reverberating like a sign of relief that shattered the heavy shadow over us all. But then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. As I crouched to grab her, I glanced up just in time to see Lucas breaking free, rage and desperation morphing his face into a mask of pure fury. "You think this is over?" he roared, lunging forward without regard to the consequences of his actions. Adrenaline flooded my veins as another horrific realization struck me. My mother had been standing too close. She was cornered behind Lucas, her expression a mixture of fear and resolve. "Run!" she screamed at us, voice thick with an urgency that solidified my earlier choice to protect her. But I was at the epicenter of the chaos, trapped in a moment suspended in time. A single choice could spiral us down an unthinkable path. Every second dragged, and the escalating conflict felt like a horror movie reaching its blood-curdling climax. "Save her!" Caleb shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the tumult. My heart hammered in my chest. This was no longer just a fight. It was a throaty engagement with an inescapable darkness. Then everything changed in an instant, a snake-like movement that sent a chill racing down my spine. I caught a glimpse of Tara's face shift from fear to determination, her small figure rushing forward toward her grandmother right as Lucas pivoted toward her, a dark intent lurking behind his movements. Desperation clawed at my throat as I prepared to spring forward to save her, caught in a moment I never anticipated, and then it all erupted. "Annie! Look out!" Caleb yelled, throwing himself towards me as everything tilted sideways. The world tilted, and I was propelled into a nightmarish realization. This was where the lines blurred, where promises shattered, and where our hidden pasts would finally expose their teeth. And as the chaos unfolded, wrapping us all in shadows of dread, I realized we were about to unearth far more than the demons of Lucas. The very fabric of my family's history was threatening to come undone, revealing truths that could forever change who I believed I was. Yet, just as the weight of impending danger settled like a dark cloak over us, something unexpected happened. In the grip of fear, I caught sight of something flickering in the doorway, a flash of blue and gold, a police light. Hope? Or more danger? Everything hinged upon the precipice of a moment, and I had to decide, would I step into the light, or risk everything to plunge further into the darkness? As the chaos swirled around me, the moment hung heavy, teetering between the delicate threads of uncertainty and vibrant, unfathomable courage. I could feel every heartbeat echoing in the stunned silence that followed the police light's blue and gold pulsing against the shadows, cutting through the malevolence that had seeped into our once happy home. In that fraction of a second, everything shifted. The door slammed open, and uniformed officers flooded in with urgency, their presence a shield against the dark. I flinched momentarily, but forced my feet to remain planted on the ground. "Police! Hands where we can see them!" The commanding voice pierced the air, shattering the frantic tension like glass. As Lucas momentarily recoiled, my heart raced with hope and dread, all at once, battling within me. "Annie!" one officer shouted, planting himself between us and Lucas. "Are you hurt? Are you in danger?" The question jolted me, not from shock, but in recognition of the plea behind it. Someone truly cared. My throat tightened around the choked-back emotions, the memories of terror clawing their way back into the fractures of my mind. I hesitated, every word laced with a mix of fear and determination. "This man, he's dangerous. He's threatening my family." My voice trembled, choking on the gravity of the truth that had been simmering beneath the surface. With urgency, the officer nodded, eyes shifting toward the growing tension alongside Lucas. "Stay back. We've got this." His partner moved to restrain Lucas, who suddenly transformed from the predator back to the cornered animal, rage thrumming through him. "Annie! You'll regret this," he snapped, but his voice fell ignored as chaos erupted anew. The police were swift. Handcuffs clicked around Lucas' wrists, like a distant echo of justice finally crashing back into the symphony of buried fears. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt raw, exposed, on the precipice of something I didn't understand. Even as Lucas was dragged away, the weight of unresolved conflict pressed down on me. "Annie, are you okay?" Caleb asked, urgency threading into his voice again as he moved closer. But I was still grappling with the whirlwind of emotions that stirred within us. From fear of what had just transpired to the blistering pain from years of neglect and chaos. "I am fine," I replied, though my voice cracked. But how could I articulate the storm swirling inside me? It was an emotional disaster zone. I was tired of being the girl hiding from her past. Tired of pretending my father's sins didn't loom over me like an unwieldy cloud. "We need to talk," my mother said, stepping forward, her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty. Together. An invisible thread tugged within me, a pull toward the truth, toward healing. With the police securing the immediate threat, I finally felt a weight begin to lift. "What do you mean?" I asked my mother, the words slipping from my tongue with a newfound courage. "There are things you don't know about our past," she said, her eyes shimmering like forgotten stars as she gathered herself, strength threading through her trembling. "Things I've shielded you from for far too long." A deep breath anchored me as I nodded, my heart steadying with the vulnerability. "I think it's time I found out," I replied, feeling the ground beneath taking shape again. It was strange, almost absurd to feel that this battle was only the beginning to feel stronger at the edge of violence. This thread of hope surged through me, raw and unpolished. Ironically, this feels like the first step toward a different future, and you won't have to face it alone, Caleb said, his eyes locked onto mine. His steadfast presence anchored me in a way that stirred the remnants of what felt lost. The warmth between us filtering through the scars left by Lucas and threats yet untread. "There's a chance to start over," my mother said, determination flickering between her guarded weariness and my own. "The past doesn't define us. It shapes us together, resolving together, an unspoken pact forming amidst the disaster, ignited an ember of unity." The echoes of the past faded slowly, inevitably, and heartbreakingly as I nodded in agreement, feeling it all unravel back into the nurturing light of what we could become, a journey toward forgiveness and healing, toward reclaiming my family. Just as Lucas was escorted out, I caught a glimpse of his expression, one of defeat mixed with the remnants of a sinister challenge. Yet, through the corner of darkness where fear had once encumbered, I felt it dissolve, no longer a shadow looming but a flicker of my own growth, unresolved still yet evolving. As the officers began to steady the chaos, clearing our space, life flickered back into focus. "I see you've chosen to fight," Caleb said softly, almost as if granting me the victory of reclaiming my spirit. "It's a beautiful thing." The shadows of uncertainty were still trailing on the cusp of my consciousness, but for now, they faded into the periphery, the first step to acceptance hovering just above reach. I was not only embracing a darker past, but I was stepping into the light of resilience. With my family now standing together, no longer just haunted by the remnants of yesterday but finally prepared to confront whatever lay ahead, something within me soothed. "We will face this together, as a family," I promised, the shivering whisper of strength echoing within my chest. And as I stepped across the threshold into the fading light of day, I found a moment ripe with possibility, a chance to transform pain into hope. The past had bared its teeth, but it had not pulled me under. Looking toward the horizon, I whispered the words that had been buried too long, a mantra that would guide me forward. "Am ready." And in that simple phrase, everything seemed to find its place, settling with a strength I had yet to explore. As I turned back one last time, I caught Caleb's soft glance brush against mine, a promise etched in shared suns and shared storms, forever bound by the knots of shared history. Together, we moved forward, into the light, ready to embrace the unfurling mystery of who we would become. As the sun dipped into the embrace of dusk, illuminating the world awash in gold, I knew this was just the beginning. The key to healing shimmered quietly just ahead, waiting to be discovered in its multifaceted beauty. And I realized we're no longer trapped in the past, but stepping boldly into a future where our choice to fight mattered most. We were free.